I'm back. I am back. So sorry about the ducking out there, folks. But that's okay. We're just gonna get back to it. And what are we getting back to? Backgrounds. Backgrounds, backgrounds, and more backgrounds. This is looking okay. Oopsie poo. Again, just trying to add a little bit of noise to the floor here. So so sometimes with this brush, I love this brush, but the one downside to it is because it's got a smudge factor. It can pull color away from the edges and expose the alpha. So there, okay. Now, they're okay. Yeah, I can see kind of a major problem actually. Let's take this out and let's do this. I'm gonna go to here. Yeah, so I'm gonna take this, jump this down to here, and this blank keyframe also. Okay.
Well, what'd you do that for, Dave? What was the point of that? Well, the point of that was,
if you look here, it's kind of important, like in a big way, that we see the table let's see. So his shadow is actually over up above that, so I'm just gonna kind of put a shape in here. I need to actually okay. Yeah, stupid attack there, Dave. Okay, so yeah, the problem is that I've got this overlay of her looking down that is not in this shot. So that's kind of a big problem because we need to have her in there in order to frame this up. And so, okay. So what I want to do is, let's take a peek here. Okay, so yeah, that's a bit of a problem. Kind of hard to explain why, but I guess the question is, does it really matter? Okay, so the problem is that the monkey and the girl are in the same layer. So that means a little oversight on my part in that we don't have her overlaid here, but we do have her overlaid there. So let's just kind of see what else we have here. So yeah, in each of those shots, she needs to be put back in the shot. Okay. One of the downsides of Krita is that you don't have an easy way to actually just paste into a frame. Whenever you do a quick cut and paste operation, you actually create a new layer. So that's okay. We'll live with that. What I'm going to do is grab this ink, Control C, and then go Control V. Okay, so that created a new layer, and as you can see, it's also got a blank keyframe here. Oh, no, it doesn't. Okay, cool, that worked. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take... Actually, it did work. It's just that we're being confused by the fact that the color isn't in the shot, so... Why would that be appearing like a duplicate? Okay, so then here... I want to go insert, insert a keyframe, and then here I want to duplicate this back to here, and you could do it this way as well. Copy to clipboard, and then here we want to paste to the clipboard. Okay, so now she's gone, she's there. Oop, she needs to be gone. Boom. She's there, she needs to be gone. So this is the complication you do bump into when you start adding, hey golden slime. You know, when you start when you're dealing with a long sequence of shots, the management of keyframes becomes considerably more clunky, if you will. Okay, so let's go to the color layer, and what I'm going to do is the same thing. So I'm going to go, I'm going to actually select that whole thing, and again paste it. So as you can see, this is like I said, this is where it gets a little bit clunky. I'm actually going to save my work because as stable as Krita's been lately, I definitely don't really trust it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take this addition and hit Control E and bake it down. Okay, so now all I've done is effectively combined her into a single layer. What keeps confusing me is, what the heck is this one? Let's get rid of that. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing again here and here. So the only thing missing is the shadow. Okay, there's the shadow. Well, why don't we do it this way then? Just take this keyframe. Well, see, yeah. This is a good example of what I'm talking about. If I just cut and paste the shadow, I'm going to overwrite the shadow that was there on Monkey. So I think what I'm going to do to just make my life as simple as possible is, let's bake this down. And now we're going to, at least we've got Tina in the shot, in the monkey shots. We just don't have her shadow. We have it on the first one. Oh wait, there it is. Okay, actually, I guess that's right. Once I baked it down, the previous shadows. Okay, so this one shadow we will have to duplicate downstream here, and frankly, screw it. I'm going to leave that for later. Okay, so hey Yvette, I'm running dual live streams. Okay, that's weird. That's pretty weird. Let me look at my channel. Oh, that's weird. That's bizarre. What do you do when you're running dual live streams? That is really, really strange. I'm actually going to look at this. Thank you for pointing that out, Yvette. And I appreciate you following suit by posting your comment twice. You know, let's just duplicate things. I'm just kidding. So what do we do? Well, what I want to do, the actual live stream that's active here in my YouTube studio is the one I want to keep, but the one that I want to get rid of, oh, for crying out loud. Okay, here's what I'm going to do, folks. I'm going to kill my live stream. I'm going to kill everything. Yeah, I do not see a way in the YouTube studio to actually mitigate that. Oh wait, I might have a way. Let's take this and delete forever. I'm going to be bold and delete it forever. So it's deleting that, and meanwhile So we'll see if that works. Yep, that seemed to have worked. So sorry about that. Stupid attack on my part. Crap happens. The world will keep on turning, as far as I know. Okay, so here, let's go back here and kind of see where we've arrived. Okay, so what I did was I jumped up here to this this frame and was fiddling, yes, fiddling with the table. Now, I couldn't possibly have done this more poorly. This really needs to be more like that. Yeah. Okay, so we are really monkeying with physics here. Because the way I've drawn this doesn't really make all the sense in the world. But can we make it work? I think so. I think so. So I'm going to try. Can't hurt to try. Okay, so boom, let's take that, and I just want to look at where Monkey's hand goes. Okay. So we're going to say this is our bowl. Now you can see we have a bit of an issue going on with the fact that the his shadow's bleeding over. Well, it's again, like I was saying earlier, this is what happens when you, and by the way, it's what always happens when you have a shot like this where you have multiple shots in a single sequence. Especially once you start making corrections, which you always have corrections, right? Things start getting clunky in a hurry. They just always do. So I am going to just fiddle with this and kind of see where it takes us. And hopefully we're not going to wind up with some work that I have to just basically scrap because it sucks so bad. But it could happen. And we're not going to cry about it. Okay. So I'm using ridiculously bold colors here just to get blocked in what I think I want here. So this is basically supposed to be a bowl of nuts. Right? Bowl of nuts. And for my purposes now, yeah, the cast shadow is the problem. Frankly, the cast shadow, that's going to have to be edited. I think for now I'm just going to take the cast shadow out because it's just a little bit of a distraction having this shadow that doesn't make any sense, sort of overlapping everything. So anyway, bowl of nuts. We'll let the nuts have some shadows. I'm gonna hey, no big deal, babe. I appreciate the tip. Kind of a goofy problem. Something it's never happened before. I've never made that mistake. There was something that YouTube told me when I set up the live stream that should have clued me in, which I won't belabor. But okay, so basically bowl of nuts, right? Bowl of nuts. Boom. Okay, so that's fine. And I'm not going to worry about making it look like he pulled a nut out of the bowl. Actually, I don't think that matters. I may change my mind about that, but for now I'm thinking what we'll do is we'll just kind of say this is going to be left in shadow. And so, you know, basically that looks kind of okay. Again, like I said, the physics of it don't make any sense. If she was really going to turn in this direction like that, this really isn't quite what it would look like. But anyway, I got this in here, so that means I can drag this back to here. And I do believe I want to drag these here and then grab this again, which this is going to have to be duplicated because basically you've got a painting here that's going to be updated, and there's really no concept of like clone cells in Krita. So unless you did it with clone layers, which you could do actually, there's not a good way to make changes to this painting and then have it update to all the downstream copies. What we do want to do though is here, obviously we've got a little bit of a problem with the scale. So there's two things I want to do. Number one is I'm going to grab the group and I'm going to blow this up a bit, okay? And then I'm going to do this kind of the simplest way possible, which is to add a filter, blur. We're not going to worry about, actually let's use Gaussian blur. We're not going to worry about making it, you know, really look like lens bokeh. I don't think that really matters too much here. Okay, so then here on that layer, I'm just going to hit Control F. So, you know, I'm just basically tightening up the focal depth, right? Since this is a little different camera angle than this. And so I think we can probably get away with that. So 7 concurrent viewers, yet only Golden Slime and Yule Adams, or Adamus I should say, alias Yvette, have bothered to identify themselves. I take objection to that, people. Identify yourself. Identify yourself. Okay, so here, let's just hit Insert, Insert, because that's going to have to be completely colored, then cut and paste it into Tahoma, and then we're going to do a camera move on it. So, okay, that gets us back to here. And I guess to a degree, we could probably just look at how this is playing back and see what we have. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. Not too bad, actually. And then she looks over there, and basically what's happening is, you know, she's in this tent, being queued up to be married off to the prince, actually, which she wants no part of. And so you've got this business with Monkey going on because there's multiple story threads all overlapping each other right now, because outside the tent right now is Mel listening to what's going on inside the tent because he wants the monkey, because Monkey stole his bag, and in the bag is a letter that can't get lost, but it got lost because Monkey stole it. And so you got Mel on the outside of the tent, Monkey in the tent, Tianara noticing Monkey. So you got all this stuff going on, and then all of a sudden she glances over here and notices perhaps she's just discovered a way out, because at the back of the tent she sees where the monkey came in. Yeah, ninja animators hiding and watching the great work. Absolutely. Thank you, Yvette. I appreciate that. So how's things going with the book? Is the book selling? How's that going? I mean, you feeling pretty good about things? Not too bad. Yeah, the problem is his cast shadow's sort of bleeding over the nuts, but on the other hand, honestly, it doesn't really look like that though. So I think this is actually okay. At least it would be okay if that shadow was blurred, which it should be anyway. So let's go to the cast shadow layer and look at what we've got. Cast shadow. There's Monkey. Okay. And I'm actually going to use that. Yes. I'm going to use that Gaussian blur again. And I'm just going to say, let's let Monkey's shadow, his cast shadow, be blurred a little bit. And that kind of excuses the bleed over onto the bowl of nuts. So it's actually a pretty simple fix. Pretty simple fix. So, all right. So I'll recap some of the things I discussed when I was live streaming earlier, which I sort of cut short. Basically, I wanted to take a break, and then I resumed it. But number one, I haven't been on live streaming for a couple weeks, and that's mainly because of tax season. You know, mostly is kind of the big reason. what I'm wondering as I'm thinking about this is, at this point, could we bake this down? I think we should. I'm going to go Control E, and boom, I'm going to merge that group. I'm baking the sucker down. Okay. Now, step number 2. Do I want to grab a plain old, pencil instead of my paintbrush, my favorite pencil, and just start dialing in a little bit of detail with ye old pencil? And I think so. Hey, dead pianist. So, yep, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to tighten this up a bit with some simple pencil work. So I'm going to hit the N key. So this is actual size. So this kind of helps me dial in the level of detail I need. So the good news is that, you know, last month I talked a bit about this whole idea of crowdfunding the show. And then I kind of let that languish for a bit because I really wanted to make sure I sort of had my specs and my plan in place before I turned that thing loose. And I still haven't turned it loose. Still not gonna for a little bit. But the good news is that I felt very strongly, just my gut, you know, said that it was a good time to have a conversation with my film distributor. Reason being that the whole reason I'm doing Salt and Light instead of continuing to work on that Akari anime thing I was working on previously was that he and I had had a conversation a year ago or more where we agreed that this show, this concept was, you know, appropriate to the market, and yeah, the time was good, the time was right to maybe create a show like this. Well, then I gave myself a year, basically, gave myself a year to learn how to just really dial in the workflow and all the rest. So anyway, I had this gut feeling about a week ago. I'm like, yeah, I should really reconvene with Dave, my distributor guy, whose name happens to also be Dave. So we had that conversation 2-3 days ago, and I showed him the state of the show, and he was stoked. He was stoked. Very much felt the quality was where it needed to be. Very much agreed and enthused that this show will serve a demographic that's quite underserved in the marketplace here in the United States, for sure. Which is basically your teen and tween. You know, with a cartoon like this, you're probably gonna, I'm guessing, probably gonna grab a little bit more of a male audience than female, but probably not overwhelmingly so, I would guess. Of course, it's impossible to know for sure. So anyway, it was good for him, good for me to revisit the show and say, okay, here's where we're at. We've got about 36 to 38 out of 48 minutes animated. So the state of the show in that respect is pretty good. But anyway, I think the bottom line for me that was kind of cool was that, being that it's their objective to distribute the show, that we're talking about, you know, finding some ways that they can help to promote, not only promote the show, but even promote the crowdfund, which could be quite helpful since they have 500,000 YouTube subscribers. And when somebody with 500,000 YouTube subscribers, which that's just their YouTube channel. I mean, they're a global distributor. I mean, you know, they've got some pretty good street cred. They've been doing it for many years, and it's definitely encouraging to be able to show the intended distributor the state of the show and have them, you know, be really pleased with what they see, right? That kind of thing. So, as I've alluded to in my talks here on YouTube many times, this show, I wouldn't be creating this show if we didn't already have a distribution pathway in place. But the reality is that based on the projections of what it would earn, you know, I can only work for free for so long before, you know, it's kind of important that you make a little bit of money. So if we didn't have at least some sort of reasonable market-based, market-informed estimates of what a property like this should earn, then we wouldn't really have the basis on which to create it in the first place. So that was where we started, like over a year ago, was with some assumptions. We are making some assumptions about what we can expect in the marketplace. But those assumptions, again, are well informed by lots and lots of experience on the part of my distributor, who's able to look at the data and the analytics and the revenue for a lot of different properties that they distribute and say, okay, based on what we see, this is what we think we could probably expect from this show. Okay, so why am I telling you this? So the bottom line is this is all very good news, because as of this conversation we had 2 days ago, they want to look at ways to help promote not just the show, but actually the crowdfund. In other words, if I can crowdfund this thing successfully to a reasonable degree, then that just kind of takes some of the pressure off, so that I can, because my heart's desire, my goal is to hunker down and just go. Just I want to focus on creating a show. You know, and we're talking about a 12-episode show, you know, which could be more, could expand into a lot more actually, but for sure what's planned is 12. Okay, so, and I told Dave that when we talked. I'm like, you know, this is what I want to do. I don't really want to become a social butterfly. This is actually my biggest hesitation about crowdfunding, is I don't really want to do the promotional side of it very badly, because it does require you to a degree to become Mr. Social Butterfly. You know, and that's really not me. You know, basically my YouTube live streaming is pretty much the only social media, social networking I do. I have no interest. It's not my thing. I think the platforms are largely rife with trash in terms of the quality of the content and the usefulness of it, especially on the social political side as far as the things people post. Yeah, it's just not where I want to be. So, and Dave seemed to appreciate and empathize with that and say, yeah, I mean, if we can find a way to sort of help you get the word out about the crowdfund, that just helps them, because if there's more awareness of the show, then they're gonna sell more, and they're crushing it. I mean, as far as their revenue picture, I can't tell you numbers. I do know some numbers. I can't really say it here publicly, but based on what they're doing with their YouTube channel, which, as I said, has 500,000 subscribers, and what they're doing on Tubi, for example, and Pluto TV, they're doing extremely well, getting properties out there, and so anyway. So that's really good news, because I feel like the relationship I've had with those guys has been very mutually beneficial for about 10 years now, and so it was really encouraging to revisit this property and have him feel like, yeah, we are on track. This is what we want to see. This is good. Can't wait to get it out there and, you know, promote it and make it successful. Well, it's not every day that you get, you know, well, it is every day actually. If anybody who has an employer, hopefully gets that kind of support from their employer, you know. Now, so Bridgestone Multimedia is not my employer, but I certainly have partnered with them on multiple projects, and they've always done a great job, even through some of the serious ups and downs that the industry went through about 5 years ago. Mostly downs. Like the entire retail sector just disappeared overnight. That really happened. Okay, so now what I want to do is let's cheat a bit. Let's take this color and bring this over here. Okay, so why did I do that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, and by the way, I appreciate your comment, Yvette, about workflow, because workflow, as you know, is important to me to sort of figure it out and dial it in. And the Krita to Tahoma workflow with yet another experiment with Blender last week. This whole sequence I'm working on right now was done in Blender first. But I'm just not going to do it. I'm firmly ensconced in the world of the marriage between Krita and Tahoma. Even to the point where, assets, as you guys can see here, in many cases leaving it in many, many layers. It just depends on the situation. With the background, as you can see, I baked it down. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It depends. Okay. But the idea is to create the assets in Krita, and then when I save the Krita file, which is always saved based on the number of the shot, so this is shot number 481. Okay, so I save that. That means that all of this data, all of these layers, everything about it is baked into the Krita file, so it's sort of safe and protected in the Krita file. I can always get back to it, right? So when I cut and paste anything into Tahoma, which you can cut and paste an entire group, right? So I can go right here and hit Control A, and everything in this group, not the background, just the character, will cut and paste into Tahoma. So if I go here, and just hit Control V, well, okay, we got a glitch that time. Let me see. Could be that I need to be on a keyframe. Not sure about that. Let me see something. Boom, boom. Okay, so what I'm going to do is hit Control A, Control C. So the cool thing about this workflow is that now when I save this Tahoma file, this image will get saved in the extras folder for the project. So now we've got 2 copies of it. So it's just a little more secure way to work. So the raw assets are back here in Krita, and I can get back to them if I have to. But basically, I want to get the assets generally baked down like this. I generally do not want to take the shadow layer and the ink layer and the color layer and bring them all separately into Tahoma. That's almost never a good idea. There are times when it is, but it usually isn't. And so then the cool thing is that unlike Krita, in Tahoma, the render settings for this scene are baked into the scene file. So that means when I have to make corrections, which I always have to go back and make corrections, I can make that correction and then just hit Control-Shift-R and boom, it's instantly re-rendered, automatically updates in the show edit, as you see here. You know, I can make a change that quick. So for me, that's where I've landed, is create the assets, do your drawing and painting in Krita, save it. But if you're going to render it out to an image sequence, Control R, it always renders to the same place. It renders to a temp render folder, and then that gets dragged into Tahoma, and the official render that goes into the show comes out of Tahoma. That's where I've landed because it gives me the best combination of flexibility and security, if you will, and performance, frankly. And by having Tahoma be the home base for these shots, it's always very easy to go in and add the plastic tool. Like right here, if you wanted her to just move her head a little bit, it would take like 1 minute to set that up in Tahoma. It'd be comparatively a lot clunkier to do that in Krita, right? In fact, I'll even demonstrate it for those who are interested. All you do is go X, create a mesh, boom, create a skeleton, boom, 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 boom. I'm just kind of winging it here. I'm going to protect these areas of the mesh so that they don't get deformed no matter what I do. And then I just hit the Animate tool, and I can now, you know, as long as it doesn't move too much, I can do some simple animations to just add a little bit of character and quality to the thing. Okay, so for me, the benefit you get with that, there's just no way to do that in Krita that doesn't take a good bit longer. Now you can obviously you can hand tool your tweens, you know, for sure you can. You can use the liquify tool. It's quite useful. But yeah, that's where I've landed. So this shot, probably this shot, it's sufficiently complex that probably what's going to wind up happening is the whole thing is going to wind up getting rendered and brought into Tahoma and then re-rendered from there, I expect. Just because you know, I really I'm kind of violating my own rule by having umpteen shots all in one, you know, an entire sequence all in one Krita file. That's normally, this is just so you know, this is not standard practice. You can get away with that in Tahoma. Krita, not so much. It's better to have one shot at a time, but such is life. Here's where we're at. Okay, so getting back to backgrounds, that's feeling pretty good. So I feel like we were okay here. Monkey moves forward. Let's see how this plays. Boom. Let me hit N so we're looking at least close to actual size. There we go. No, I definitely like it. Yeah, I mean, it's feeling pretty good. The only thing I'm kind of wondering about is, because it's kind of dark, okay, it's dark in this place. Let me show you how you solve the problem I'm about to describe. So the basic problem is this. It's dark in this room, and I feel like Monkey's outlines are actually too light. How would you solve that in Krita? Here's how. First of all, I'm going to go to the ink layer, and I'm going to solo it. So I hit the tilde key, and you can see in the ink layer what we have. Okay, the way you fix the problem, there's two ways actually. One way, and I don't want to affect Tianara, okay? Her ink is in here too, but I don't have a problem with her ink because her overall colors are lighter. So that's working, that's fine. What I want to do is just darken the monkey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the S key and just lasso the monkey. Okay, so now there's two ways I could do it. One would be with a filter. I could go Control M, and let's just darken it down. In this case, that's probably the best way. For me, that feels about right. Okay, so now that has the added benefit that when I go to this frame, he's still inside the lasso, so I can just hit Control F, and that darkens up the outlines. Control F. Now I'm going to hit Control N and just make sure I'm not making it too dark. I think we're okay. So the other way to do it would be to do a fill, like you could do a fill with the freehand path tool. Just draw a lasso of shape around it, and it'll put color over the whole thing. If you first alpha lock it, if it's alpha locked to these lines, then it'll only color the lines. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so now what we'll do is we can go through and just hit Control F. Okay, little problem. Let's just check this. This is not going to matter. Okay, so this is a good example of where, look, things are moving really fast. We don't have to sweat it. Okay, so his hand was outside of the lasso, and so these lines right here didn't get colored. The question is, you know, from a quality standpoint, would it be better if they were? Yes. Does it actually matter? Probably not. It all goes by too fast, right? And now we're just going to go through one frame at a time, baby. I'm just hitting Control F to darken up his outlines. Now, as you guys are probably aware, this type of thing would be easier in Tahoma because you could just, because the palettes are procedural, you could just darken the outline color and it would just dynamically update everywhere. So, more than one way to skin the old horse, right? Skin the horse. Whoever skins a horse. I think it's skin the cat. I think it's the proper nomenclature of that saying. Okay, so now we only have 3 concurrent viewers, which means whatever I'm doing on YouTube today must be really uninteresting. Okay, okay, I get it. That's cool. All right. What else? I would say that the cast shadow feels too light as well. So I'm going to darken that. I would say that in the background, it would be nice to have just a little bit more delineation on that table. Let's go ahead. Okay, so I'm going to have to paint this, and then I'll just duplicate it multiple times like I did before. So probably I can, yep, by hitting this slash key that's below the question mark, that toggles between the last two brushes. It just toggles between them. So for that reason, kind of easy to just pull up my paintbrush again. Nice. And now what do I want to do? I want to take, first of all, I want to basically do this more properly. This is not going to go all the way to the edge. Actually, what's happening is it probably needs to be just cut off like this. So it's in perspective is what's going on. As I mentioned earlier, the perspective is a little whacked in this shot. But for storytelling purposes, it's okay. So the reality is that the light, I mean, the light's basically coming this way. So even these shadows are a little bit wacky. But how would we do that? I think what we should do is let's just add a little bit lighter color and then go to our airbrush. I just want to give this a little bit of life. Just a little something. There we go. Technically, this shadow is kind of wrong as well. That definitely helps. This is the other reason, actually, why probably this whole sequence is going to get rendered the whole thing out of Krita, and then the whole thing will get brought into Tahoma. I may separate out the backgrounds from the characters, but other than that, because I really want to have some overlays that dial in the overall look of the shot. You say, what the heck are you talking about, Dave? I'll show you. Okay, so we've still got our airbrush. So this is quite simple, actually. Let's just say we're going to give a little bit of light over here and a little bit of dark and shadow back here. So we're just putting a gradient over top of this, right? Alright, so now if we put that gradient in overlay mode, it just makes the colors pop a little bit and all of a sudden gives the shot just some dimensionality. You see it in anime all the time because they're always using gradients for things. Just makes it pop, the whole thing. Now I'm thinking about monkey. I guess I would say this is clearly whacked. I mean, like in a big way. I'm gonna use the paintbrush and let's fix this. I'm gonna turn the overlay back off for the moment. And this really does not make sense. And I kind of thought I could get away with it, and the truth is I probably can in this. But really, we're looking down, right, at monkey, so it's kind of stupid that I would have put the perspective on the table the way I did, because really we're very much looking down. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and chisel this in. So let's not create a tangent. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of put it like that so that, yeah, that makes way more sense. Okay, so having done that, question would be, are we done? And I would say, let's pull up our pencil. What I'm thinking I'm going to do here is just put a little bit of noise in the wood of the table. I mean, it would be a nice table, but let's not make it too nice, right? So just a little something to distract the eye. Not too shabby. Okay, so what about this? Let me hit this again. This is wrong. This is just plain wrong. So my apologies, people. Those of you in the audience who really expect me to get it right on the first try. I mean, obviously, it's even worse than what I'm describing because, frankly, the bowl isn't even round. From the angle we are looking at this, this actually is not correct. Can we fix it with a little bit of liquefy? Probably. So let's hit the A key, liquefy. Okay, this is going to be a bit of a delicate operation. So what we want to do is we want to pull. Okay, that's a little too aggressive. Okay, Krita is not being very responsive at the moment. Well, a good example of why I don't normally have multiple shots within a shot in Krita, because the performance penalties, once they start, they tend to pile up quickly. So this is not very responsive at all. And it doesn't seem to have much to do with the memory footprint either. You can have a fairly small file, but if there's just a lot of stuff to keep track of, and after a while, Krita seems to start bogging down a bit. So what I'll do is try to mitigate that problem, maybe by. But yeah, this is pretty horrible. This is maybe. Let's try one thing. Well. Okay, so I'll solo the layer. Maybe if Krita only has to think about one layer, it'll be a little more performant. It does not look to me like that's going to be the case. So that is most unfortunate. You know, what's sad is my $300 laptop doing this same operation I'm doing right now on my 12-core, 32-gigabyte monster machine performs worse than on my $300 cheapo laptop. So you just never know what you're going to get, I guess. You just never know what you're going to get. So this is kind of not cool. We've got a punitively difficult fix. So I know, we'll paint. We'll fix it with paint. All right, B key. Let's just do this the traditional way. Oh, how would Peter Ellenshaw do it if he had to do it, if he was still alive? Well, this is what he'd do. He'd paint. Not complicated, folks. He would just fix it by repainting what he needed to have in there. If you don't know who Peter Ellenshaw is, he was the matte painter who was responsible for all of the effects in the classic 50s and 60s Disney movies. Darby O'Gill and the Little People, which is an absolute tour de force of special effects. Even today, what they did was amazing on that show. Mary Poppins, Swiss Family Robinson. So he was the guy that handled the matte paintings on those shows, and sort of singularly pushed the envelope of what was possible with special effects at that time. Definitely an interesting time. I think his shadow could be darker because he's further back. That did add some scene depth. Yeah, I forget using special tools and go old school. Yeah, exactly. You know, quit fighting it. Just, okay, Dave, you have to paint. Sorry, guy. Well, it's fun. I mean, you know, you sort of drill down and enjoy the ride. So that is more correct. That is more correct. There's a case to be made for taking the whole thing because, in a sense, we have a tangent here. So there's a case to be made for taking the whole bowl and moving it back a bit. Let's do that and see how that feels. So I'm going to just carefully cut around this guy. unfortunately it's going to create a gaping hole. So there's the gaping hole, and so now we have to repair it. But I think pretty strongly that that's going to turn out to be a win. So I'm going to grab this color and we'll just fix it. Fix. So Walt Disney comes over to Peter Ellenshaw and says, well, Peter, I love what you did here, fella. It's fantastic. And Peter says, well, thank you, Mr. Disney. I greatly appreciate that. I really did try very hard to do a good job because I wanted to please you. And Walt Disney says, well, there's one problem there, Peter. I really appreciate what you did there. It's really outstanding, but you really need to, I think that the bowl, shouldn't the bowl be a little further back on the table? Oh, well, Mr. Disney, I suppose you could be right about that. What do you suggest we do about it? Well, you know, Peter, can't you just, slap some paint on there and just make it work? Mr. Disney, I don't think you realize just how much work that would be, sir. Oh, I know you can do it, Peter. Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah, just get her done. Yeah, I look forward to seeing it. See you later. Got another place to go, people to meet. And what would Peter do? He'd do what I'm doing. He'd just paint the darn thing. Okay, so there our little moment channeling Peter Ellenshaw is over, and we have what we have. Now, question. Oh, I guess that actually worked. Well, maybe it worked and maybe it didn't. I don't know if it worked. Let's find out. Let's pop this over here. Yeah, it works. We're good. We're good. Okay. I like what I'm seeing. Let's put the dimensionality back on, and let's let this play. All right. So we'll pull that back just a little bit and hit the old W key and spacebar. Excuse me. Oh, okay, I see something. TNR should have a blink there. It was the only thing that really jumped out at me. There was a little bit of chatter in the ink on Monkey, but that wasn't really problematic. But what I definitely see being potentially problematic is this. When her eyes go to here, there should be a blink. Therefore, the question becomes, should we do a patch layer or just... Let's just amend the color and see how it goes. If we do that, I don't think that'll work. We're going to have to amend the ink as well. But let's go ahead and grab our pencil and then the G key. What we need to do is solo this layer. So now you can see how really crude this actually is. Pretty amazing. Okay, so strike what I said. It looks like her ink was baked into the color layer. So what that means in practical terms is that we don't have to redo the ink layer. What we do need to do is at least pencil in some eyelashes. Okay. Alright, unsolo that layer. Oh, I see what the problem is. I was wrong. So we do need to amend the ink layer. That's okay. We were just dying to do that anyway. So G key, E key lets us do a quick erase job. And okay. The reason I solo this layer, by the way, is that if I were to sample the skin color with the shadow over top of it, it would actually add on to itself. So if I sample this color and then draw a shape, what actually happens is it winds up darker because the shadow's now acting on it twice. Hope that makes all kinds of sense. So, okay. I think I saw memes. Basically the same story. Walt on the phone and Peter in the back sweating. That's funny. Wow, that's hilarious. I've never seen that. Okay, so Peter Ellenshaw was a sweet guy and obviously a very amazingly talented guy too. I would put him at the top of the list. For this reason, he was a master of impressionism. He knew how little detail you could actually put in a painting, and it would trick the eye into feeling like you were seeing a photograph. I mean, he was just remarkably talented in that respect. Remarkably. Okay, so now what do we need to do? Well, the very thing I'm talking about, which is we need to address the inside of the tent. Now, let's jump over here and take a peek at something. If we, okay, that's going back too far. I think we need to go up to here. Okay, monkey goes in there. What I'm looking for is, aha. Okay, so, okay. So at the edge of the tent, in the earlier shot, we actually have, this is a classic Dave. Classic Dave right here. We actually have, not the carpet, but in fact what we have is a little bit of grass and whatnot. So, okay. Spank me, baby. Spank me. Call me a silly goose. So I'm going to go Control M. And methinks what I shall do is just see if we can rotate this back around to green. Just a dirty green. Okay, and now I'm going to grab a little bit of a sandy dirt-ish color, and let's just have some fun now painting. Let's paint some sort of muddy dirt into the situation. Then we'll come back and add little hints of what could be construed as grass. Little darker, little darker. Just want it to sort of feel like patchy. You know, it's patchy dirt. And we're going to have a little bit of light sneaking through as well. So let's do this. Now I don't want to use my foliage brush or anything like that, but what I'm going to do is just give it a little bit. Little bit of the whole grass thing. Boom, boom. Again, Peter Ellenshaw style. We're trying to just indicate what's there. Need some shadow though. Okay, so like right here, because of the light, which we probably should get in there. So let's just assume that this is light from outside. So we'll go to blue and excuse me, I'm going to turn my opacity down so I can ease it in a bit. I want to get this in here so that now I'm going to go ahead and crank it up a little more. Okay. Because she has to see that. I mean, she has to see that gap. That gap needs to jump out enough to where she goes, whoa. Could be an exit strategy here. Could be a way out of this mess in which I've found myself. Okay, so now we're going to try, I'm going to try a couple things here to try to make this more cool. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and just draw a lasso around this, right? And now I'm going to grab my airbrush, and I'm going to go straight white, but I'm going to turn the opacity way down. That's it, man. That's all we need. Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to hit the slash key, which takes me back to my paintbrush. Fortunately, it always dials between the last two brushes I used. And dancing around the opening, then I should think it would cast a bit of a shadow. Right? So, just enough to trick the eye into kind of sort of feeling like you're seeing something that suggests whatever it is you're trying to portray. A little bit of just patchy grass in this case. So again, you're going to have a cast shadow. If there's going to be a highlight, there's going to be a shadow. So, and now I'm going to sneak this way down. I always make these stupid sounds when I'm background painting, especially when I'm doing what I'm doing now, where I'm dealing with light and shadow. I'm always like, okay, hit the end key. All right, so to be accurate, this is actually gonna push in, so this is not good enough. This is definitely not good enough. This has to be better. Gotta be better. Gotta be right. Feels a little better. I just kind of feel like we need a little bit more noise, though. It just doesn't feel real yet. $10:32. Wow, is that right? It's only 10:30 in the morning? I guess I started early today. Well, that's what happens. I've been a little bit absent from YouTube, and also haven't been getting up quite as early for a bit. Well, I was actually knocked down for somewhat for about 3 days after my second COVID shot. So it's really only as of, well, this morning was the first morning that I felt totally back to normal pretty much. So that's been, it was Tuesday I got the shot, so yeah. So basically I felt like you feel like when you've got the flu, or you've had the flu, and boy, I'm gonna have to, I'm actually gonna redo these guys. I'm gonna have to redo them anyway because of the stupid tent. So let's just deal with that right now and get this over with. So you had the flu and your fever breaks. Your fever breaks, and so you know you're going to get better, but you're not better yet. Okay? So that's how I felt the day after I got my COVID shot. My second COVID shot is like that sort of after you've been through the flu. So I never had to have the fever. I never had to have the days of that, happily. Okay. Well, if you want to have the concept of layers within layers, this is how you do it. You have a selection. So, boom. I'm using the wrong brush. I want to go back to this guy. Layers within layers. That's what selections are for. Back in the old days with Photoshop, you had to do everything with channels. And frankly, probably a lot of people would do well to learn how to use channels, but
most of those youngsters, those whippersnappers nowadays, they don't know anything. They don't know how to do channels like we had to in the old days, when things were difficult, when men were men. When men were men and women were men, everyone was men.
I'm joking, people. Don't be hating on me. All right. Now what I'm going to do is get my... Okay, this is interesting. The smudge aspect of the brush is actually working against me in kind of a big way right here. Let me see here. Okay. Well, all right. To be fair, this is my own stupid fault. There's a key thing that I forgot here, which is that none of this is actually the background. This was all supposed to be painted. Okay. Yeah, major stupid attack. Let's just rectify that right now. What am I thinking? I'm thinking... Let me think about how we want to do this. Okay, step one is we've got this pinkish tint. So let's do, in the color layer, let's fill that. Okay, not too bad. The ground, do we even need to do anything with it? I think what we'll do is we'll paint this. Yeah, we'll go ahead and paint this. So just a little bit of a difference in the value there. And then I think I will probably do a little bit of a saturation adjustment too, because this is a little undersaturated compared to the earlier pictures we had when Monkey first snuck in, right? Okay, so let's just kind of go with this. Grab that, little darker, make it big. That's what Peter Ellenshaw would say. Big brush.
You need to use a house painter's brush. It has a marvelous ability to keep things at a level of detail that are appropriate to the situation at hand.
I don't know if Peter Ellenshaw would say that, but he might say something like that. Oh, remarkably talented guy. Love Peter Ellenshaw. Okay. Okay, so let's unsolo that layer. Oh yeah, and turn the background back on. Okay, and we see what the problem is.
Yes, we've certainly fouled this up, haven't we?
Oh my goodness, I've fouled this up in spades. But fortunately, relatively easy to fix. And now what we can do is go back in and grab that light again. We've already got the highlight in there. The highlight's already there. So just build that up. Build that up, baby. I like it. I like the way this is starting to look. I want to edit the ink because the ink looks a little bit... Well, the ink's overlaying my background in a way that it looks stupid, but as far as what I was after on this shot... Oops. Curse you, brush. Yes. Just a... Zuko, why are you making so much noise over there, little buddy? You are just chirping like a monster today. You want some attention? I think Zuko wants some attention. You want to come and visit? You want to come and visit the massive... Yeah, Yvette, uphill both ways. It's an important detail. Important detail. Uphill both ways. Okay, so if I go to the ink layer, yeah, there's more than one way to do this, but I think I'll just hit GE, and I'm going to go wonk. Just take those lines out. So now, I got to say, I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing here. Now, the only caveat that we have to sneak these really don't want to be using the G key. Well, actually, maybe we do. Maybe we do. Let's use the pencil with the G key. I actually like that. That gives me some nice sharp... Yes, that actually looks really good. This is what I was trying to do. So this just shows how stupid I am. Sometimes I just have to try a few different things before I figure out what it really is that I'm trying to do. So frankly, that looks pretty cool. That looks pretty good. That is in the zone that I was trying to achieve. Yeah, not bad. I can always revisit it later too. So save that. Hit the old rewind button. And methinks what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this, I think I'm going to call this shot done. The ink layer hue. That would be easy to do. The curves tool in Krita is one of the most flexible around. It's close in Tahoma, actually. The curves in Tahoma are close, but I don't think they give you a hue and saturation. So if I hit Control M and do curves on any layer, you can do the RGBA, each of the individual colors, the alpha, the hue. You can do a hue shift, saturation, and lightness, all in a single curves tool. And obviously the responsibility of each of those channels does overlap one another. So that means that you could do, for example, if you do an S curve on the RGB layer, you could make a shift like that plus a saturation reduction plus a lightness boost plus a hue shift, all in one curves operation. So that is useful, especially because if you come up with a operation that's really worked and you've got multiple keyframes to do it on, you can just go to the next keyframe and hit Control F and it'll just repeat that same curves operation. Now I will say, from what I just saw, actually now that we're on the topic, let me turn the overlay back on just to be safe here. Okay, so I would say this, I'm actually thinking that that was probably a good idea. What I'm going to do is go to the saturation channel and you can see what happens. This is more accurate to what we had in the earlier shot when Monkey came into the tent. So that's really what we wanted. And I think I mentioned that earlier, that I was pretty sure I was going to have to do a saturation operation on the background. But there is a bit of a dance in this whole sequence because of the fact that, probably because I'm an idiot, Tianara's outfit is similar in color to the color of the tent that she's in, so I've sort of had to dance around that a bit. Okay, so yeah, boy, I'm glad I put that eye blink in there. That's good. And then Krita needs to update its cache. So here what's going to happen is we're just going to zoom in. So alright, so I'm going to look at some of Yvette's comments. Did you get the dreams from Fever? The dreams? Well, that was my point, actually. I never had the fever. Well, okay, I did have a small, just a low-grade fever, very low, after the shot. But I never went through the fever. That's what I was saying. I got the shot, and then the next day I felt the way you feel when you've had the flu and the fever's over. The fever breaks in the middle of the night, you're covered in sweat, whatever. The next day you wake up and you go, I can tell I'm getting better and I'm going to be okay, right? That was how I felt the next day after I got the shot. So, thanks, you just showed me something to play with. Yeah, the curves tool in Krita is super powerful and flexible. And of course, you can always add it as a filter mask as well, so that at any time you can go in and make changes to it by just right mouse right mouse clicking on it and clicking properties, right? So you can adjust it after the fact. So for that reason, filter masks are definitely quite useful. So there's that. You know, and again, on this particular, this is actually a good example where having dual channels in the curves tool is useful. Here's why. What I actually want to do is I want to kick down the shadows here a little bit. Okay, I want to kick down the shadow color, but still have pretty good contrast, right? So the problem is that anytime you create an S curve or do what I'm doing here, you're gonna see your saturation go through the roof. So to be able to compensate by also dropping the saturation a bit is definitely quite useful. So we're going to go from that to that. Yeah, I'd call that a win. Now one thing that's, okay, so I can see those grass blades are actually in the color layer. They're not in the background. But yeah, so there we go. So that helps. So I think after all this time, I'm finally done with this shot because, well, I was getting the, you know, the personal taxes and the quarterly payroll taxes and getting all that stuff done this week. This particular sequence has taken like a few days to finally get done. So the only thing that's bugging me about this whole sequence, frankly, is monkey. I don't feel like we've got enough contrast. It's like what we're doing here with the overlay. I want to kick it up a bit. So here's what I'm going to do. Monkey's basically in the color layer. So what I'm going to do is I am going to do something I rarely do, which is I'm going to go ahead and put the color layer in its own group. So I hit Control G, and then I'm going to add another layer on top of that so that I can sum these together. All right. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to go through and just insert keyframes. So I don't want to get overly ambitious here. I just want to work with monkey. So I'm inserting a blank keyframe everywhere it switches from TNR to monkey. Monkey, there's monkey, back to TNR, back to monkey, back to TNR. Okay. Now I'm going to go up here, and I'm hoping it would be a little unusual for me to do this with an airbrush, but I'm actually thinking it's what I want to try. So let's go to the B key and let's grab the airbrush. And then what I'm going to do is I just want to take monkey and kick up his contrast. Okay, and I also want the saturation benefit, so I'm going to put it in overlay mode. And actually, friends, I think that's precisely what I wanted to do. All right, and now I'm going to go to white, and I'm going to make the contrast on this absolutely ridiculous, but then we'll dial it down. Okay, I had mentioned this in a video some time ago about how overlay mode can actually make you can do this in like in filmmaking. And by the way, YS Books, I have to apologize. I made a grievous error today. I had a brain fart. And when Yul Adamus showed up, I was thinking in my head YS Books. So I kept calling you Yvette. YS Books is Yvette. Yul Adamus is Yul. So I greatly apologize for that. That was a very rude and stupid mistake on my part. So I apologize for that. I'm liking the way that looks. Okay. So yeah, sorry Yul. I seriously, that's really embarrassing. That was like majorly stupid. Forgive me. Forgive me. I can't believe you didn't point it out though. It's like, Dave, precisely how stupid are you there, dude? Okay, B key. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just tweaking this a little bit on a per frame basis. Because here, I feel like it came out just about right. But on these, once he moves forward, I kind of feel like we lost it a little bit. And so, the nice thing is I'm just using black and white. But because it's in overlay mode, what it's doing is it's kicking up the contrast and the saturation on Monkey. And it's alpha locked so that everything I'm painting is only relegated to Monkey. Thanks, Yule. I appreciate that. Everyone seems to like Monkey. I mean, I figured he'd be a good addition to the show, but I, of course, couldn't have predicted how, what you're saying. Darren T has said the same thing multiple times. Something about Monkey people seem to like. So that's great. Well, when my distributor and I originally talked about this show, he was envisioning something that was for really little kids, which I'm glad I didn't do, because that would introduce the whole COPPA thing, and you're basically guaranteeing that your revenues are lower and the constraints on you are much, much higher if you're explicitly trying to create children's content. This is not children's content, and it does not purport to be. But anyway, the point was that originally he had suggested having like a talking animal in the show. And Monkey is not a talking animal, but I mean, I guess he's kind of like Momo in Avatar, right? He doesn't talk, but he's kind of there to lighten the mood here and there. So I think he serves that purpose. Definitely liking what I'm seeing. So I'm going to be bold and hit Control E and bake that down. I may regret that. I may regret it. We'll see. But I'm actually going to go ahead and change the name back to color. Save my work, and let's see what we have. Go, baby. Okay, so when we bring this stuff over into Tahoma, we're going to have this shot is going to be pushed in, and I actually think this shot feels a little awkward to me in terms of the staging and the framing. My sense would be the following. If I wanted to try to fix it in one swipe, yeah, if I wanted to fix this in one swipe, that would be dangerous. It's kind of weird that it looks okay here, but for some reason doesn't look okay here. She feels smaller in the frame. That's bugging me a little bit. So the problem is, it's a big problem actually. One of Krita's glaring weaknesses is that the free transform tool doesn't remember it specifically to these two frames. Okay? I wish they would rectify that, because in Krita, that one change in the program would make a mountain of animation possibilities simple. It would make them simple. All you need is for the transform tool to just remember its settings so that you can apply the same transform over and over again. So then all of a sudden doing a zoom with the camera is easy. You just apply 105% scale multiple times and it's good, right? It's so simple. It's so obvious. How they've missed it, I don't know, but they've missed it. So there is no way that I'm aware of to get the transform tool to remember its settings. However, what we can do, if we pay attention here, yeah, see the scale. This is so uncool. I guess we'll try it this way. Alright, this is what we'll do. We'll lock this and go 110. Okay, that we can do. So now what we're going to do is we'll go here, grab this, lock it, and go 110. So So it's not the worst thing ever. It's just close to the worst thing ever. Same situation again. Lock the X and Y, 110%. Okay, so now what is the problem? Why did that fail spectacularly? Ah, I know why. Okay, let's back up. I'll show you. Okay, what just went wrong here is that the shadows don't actually animate. So I don't want to do that scaling operation to the shadows because I'm adding the, it's doing with the zoom I just described actually. I think Blender has the keep alterations over frame selection condition. Well, yeah, I mean, Blender's completely different. I mean, it would be like, I mean, in Tahoma, same thing. You can parent a column to another column and then do a translation on the parent column, and then of course those translations propagate, right? So that's definitely a useful thing. What I'm going to have to do is actually do my translation 4 times. I've got to go on just the ink layer, grab it, lock it, 110. Grab it, lock it, 110. Now I have to go here on the color layer, grab it, lock it, 110. And finally here, grab it, lock it, 110. So now I think it's going to look correct. Yeah, other than I definitely am detecting a bug because as you can see, look at that. Her position changed slightly, which is totally uncool. Because that means, see, this is the clunk 101. This is where having cut and pasted it into Tahoma would have really been easier. But that's okay. Okay, so what we've got is we've got about a, yeah, when we did them as a group, they all stayed together. Okay, you can see what happened. Yeah, that is quite egregious. So to be clear, the only way this could have happened is if in some way the mathematics between the calculations it did on the color layer and the ink layer weren't the same, or more likely because it's okay, so let's undo. So silly. Okay, so what's going wrong here is that and I'm gonna undo everything actually. I'm gonna just, come on. Come on. I'm trying to get back to this. And Krita's being stupid. Okay, I think we're okay now. Okay, so what went wrong is that technically the ink layer and the color layer have slightly different dimensions in terms of where there are pixels that are colored versus where there are pixels that aren't colored. The difference may only be a pixel or two. The problem is when you use the transform tool, you grab it and it calculates that box. So the box on the ink layer and the box on the color layer were not exactly the same. They were just really close to being the same. That's why it would be so nice if you could just grab the whole group and just repeat the settings, you know, have the same bounding box, have the same center point. You can't. There's no way to get Krita to actually repeat itself when you do a transform. So kind of sucks, but that means this is going to have to be cut into Tahoma, and modified that way, which is fine. Okay, so tell you what, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do it. We're going to go ahead and do the Tahoma thing now. Okay, so the only caveat on the whole shot that makes it a bit on the clunk side would be the overlay, because we're going to have to do something in the schematic if we want to duplicate that effect in Tahoma. It's probably, since we've got a gradient baked into Monkey, honestly, I'm beginning to question whether that gradient is even needed. I would say it's not. Let's just ditch it. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Get ready, people, because this is going to be so much fun. All right, we're going to go to the background, and we're going to start knocking this out one step at a time. Now, I will say this. Here, we want to go ahead and pull up 481, because this is actually the scene that we're doing, and the render settings are already set up and everything. So we're going to do the background first, right? So I'm looking at my animation info, and we are on frame 0, and we're going to grab the background, and we're going to go Control C, Control V. Now, as you can see, in Tahoma, this is not frame 0, this is frame 1. So there's a little bit of a 1 frame difference in the numbering. Frame 29. So here we'll just ballpark it. We'll say frame 20, well, it would be 30. We'll just add 1 to everything. So here, actually strike that. What we want to do, if I paste this down here, Tahoma is going to treat it as if it were actually a brand new level that it's creating, and we don't want to do that. We want to actually make an image sequence, if you will, out of the background images. The way to do that is make sure we paste the next background on the next frame, like so. Select paste in place, and then stretch this down to frame 30. No big deal. Okay? Here, this is just a duplicate. So at frame 51, which of course is actually frame 52, we're going to just drag this guy back in. And then we'll drag this to frame 51, which puts that at frame 52. Let's go back to Monkey. At frame 65. Same situation. So we'll drag this to 65. Okay, here we got something different on frame 81. Control C. So now what we need to do is add that different background image. And I said 81. So there we go. It's actually showing up on 82. However, Monkey's background is the same one as before. So boom. Where is it? That's frame 95. So we'll drag this to 95. We're almost done with our background. And this is going to be the out of focus one on frame 107. So we grab this, pull that there, and we go to frame 107. And this is going up to 125, and I guess we want to just go ahead and cut and paste this as well. Control C. Actually, let me think about this for half a second. Truthfully, it's almost kind of stupid to... We'll go with it for the moment, but I suspect I'm going to come back and revisit this one, meaning that... oh, okay. Okay. Paste... Okay, I see what happened. Okay, cool. So I may actually... we'll see what we want to do, but I may go in and repaint over that and just kind of do it the hard way. We'll see. Okay, so I will say this background right here might just as well be in a different layer, because we're going to do a separate camera move on it, and it should really just be treated as its own shot for all intents and purposes. So there's our backgrounds. Okay. Now that we have our backgrounds, we can kill our background layer. And now what we're going to do is we're going to grab characters out of the group, because we're happy with our color, we're happy with the way things are looking. And so now what we want to do is just kind of get our assets over to Tahoma. Now there is a secret way to do this that's a little quicker and easier than you might have imagined. So I'm going to show that top secret way. Here's the top secret way. What you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and pre-render this, but you can see here only unique frames. So what it's going to do, it's going to take all of the character stuff and render it out as an image sequence. But there's not going to be any duplicate frames. Okay? So in other words, it's going to render frame 0 or frame 0, and then it's going to render this frame, then this frame, then it's going to skip and render this frame. It's not going to render the duplicates in between. Why is that cool? Well, it's cool because now I can go over here to the salt and light temp render folder. Boom. And as you can see, all of the different images from this scene are all automatically fully rendered. And now what I can do is come back over here to Tahoma and do the obvious thing, which is just drag the first image into here. It's just a temporary holding tank to get the stuff over into Tahoma. So here in Tahoma, we're going to import not load. So that's going to take a minute, and then once it's done doing that, we will save all, which will cause everything here in the Tahoma project to get saved to the extras folder, so that effectively all of my assets are backed up. And it's a good thing to back up your assets. You know, unless something crashes, obviously, which could happen. So how long have we been rocking here? An hour and 40 minutes. So what we're going to have to do, is, once the images are sufficiently loaded up in Tahoma, and it's going to take forever to save too, by the way. Okay, now what we're going to do, this is actually quite useful, more useful than you might realize. You'll notice that the image numbers are actually correct. Okay, so it goes 0, 9, right? That's super useful because that means it's telling me where to make my, you know, my edits, if you will. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to put this, technically I shouldn't put it on 9, but 10 actually. So what I'll do is I'll put this on 13. I'll put this on 16. So everything's off by 1 just because I should really just change it in Krita so that Krita renders from frame 1 instead of 0 here. So everything's working, man. That's cool. So this is going to go to 31. This is going to go to 34. Is that 34 or is that 38? It's really hard to read on this screen. I think that's 38. I'm just going to jump over to Krita and see. Yeah, it's actually 38. That's what I thought. Okay, so this should be 38. 38 to 44. So yeah, I mean, it's a little clunky. You got to take half a second and do this. But oh, the power. And see, the cool thing is now we'll be able to use the transform tool to resize her. No big deal. No big deal at all. So this goes to 54. This goes to 56. This goes to 80 or 65. And there's monkey. 65 to 66. 67 to 70. 70 to 71, 71, this goes to 75. So, like I said, you know, we've got a brief bit of clunk, but not too egregious. This goes to 80. I'm sorry, this goes to 81. Then we have this, 81 to 86, 86 to 88, 88 to 95. So kudos to Krita for naming the numbers intelligently, and kudos to Tahoma for interpreting that image sequence numbering correctly. This is actually going to go to 95, or 99, I'm sorry. 99 to 101, 101 to 107, and we're almost done here, folks. Yep, 107 to 113, or I'm sorry, 112, 112 to 113, 113 to 119, and 119 to 125. Ta-da! Okay, so now we've essentially completely recreated our Krita scene in Tahoma. I'm going to hit save all. It's probably going to take a second to save because it's going to want to save every single one of these images, which it's all going to pack into the Tahoma extras folder. So again, that gives us another layer of security, if you will. Okay, we've only got 2 concurrent viewers.
Everyone has left me. Everyone has left the building.
Okay, okay. I see what you're going to do, people. I see what you're going to do. Okay, what I'm going to do here is, yeah, I think I'm just going to treat this separately altogether, like that. But we'll see. I mean, I could just animate the camera, actually. So let's go to 142, let's say. And I think that'll probably work. So, file, save all. So now we're in Tahoma and everything is groovy. There's no reason to worry about all these assets anymore. They're all saved in the Krita file. So I've got access to all my assets. If I need to go back and change something and recut and paste it into Tahoma, no problem. But basically, we're done in Krita. Okay, so going back here, everything sure looks the same to me. Okay, so there's problem number 1. Let's do this. Let's grab the character layer and we'll hit the A key for the animation tool. And what we're going to do is just do a scale operation. Wonder if I hit. Let's see here. Let's do a global key, and let's see if this does the trick. Boom. Okay, so what that should have done is keyed all of the animatable properties, but we'll see. So what I'm going to do now is grab this, Control C, and right here, this is the one I had a problem with. Okay. So here I'm gonna paste that keyframe, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scale her up a little bit and just move her. Okay, so what should happen? Yep, that looks good. So now we'll take this, Control C, and paste it here. And now here we want to go back. We don't want it scaled. So what I'm going to do is go back and get this key and repaste that in here. Okay, so that gets everything sized up the way it's supposed to be. Here we actually drew her bigger, so we're good to go. And here, what could we do? How could we do this? Well, I think what we'll do is we'll actually drag this back here. Drag this back here. Watch this. This is going to be easy. We'll grab this keyframe, Control C, and we'll paste that in there. And now, what we're going to do is, actually, let's pull that all the way to there. And then, between there and there, we'll just do this zoom. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to parent this layer to this layer so that the translations propagate to the background, right? So we hit F3, and in the stage schematic, what we're going to do is we're going to put layer or level 2 as the child of level 3. And what that should do is make it so that they scale together. Oh, how nice. Cool beans. And if I hit Control-Shift-R, well, that's how quick it renders. And now we can go back here. Let's go to our edit. Okay, so the prior shot has Mel kind of sneaking in there and listening. And now we are going to load up this shot that we're working on. So this is scenes 481 render. That's interesting. We've just run into a glitch because if I look at my output settings, you can see that we're on scene 481 in the render folder. 481 JPEG. Here we go, scenes 481 render. And yet, for some bizarre reason, there's apparently nothing in the folder. Well, okay. Let's just jump through a couple hoops and see if we can figure out what the heck is going on. What just went wrong? Okay, that's very strange. So that would be new. That would be something I've quite literally never seen happen before. Which is, I've got my output settings in Tahoma, and it appears, I think I know what happened. I think what's going on here is that the render, I wonder what happens if we put a slash. See, it had to pre-compute. I've got a suspicion. Nope. So there's something very, very strange going on where Tahoma appears to have decided, and I might be looking straight at the answer and not seeing it. Make no mistake about it. That might be going on. But it sure looks pretty stupid. So according to Tahoma, we've got Salt and Light, Scenes 481 Render. So it appears to me, okay, yes. Okay, so what it did was it actually created a new folder called Plus Scenes, which is a little bit stupid. I'm really sure I put Plus Scenes before, but okay, we're just going to go with it. So technically it did exactly what I asked it to do, and so I need to, on my other screen, I have to move my images around. So sorry about that, folks. It is an axiomatic part of working on a complicated project like this that things are going to go wrong, and they're going to go wrong frequently. Okay, so what I want to do is, on my other screen, what I'm doing is I'm going back to the folder that was erroneous, and I'm deleting it. Okay, and of course it turns out that we're going to have one stupid thing after another today. So what's actually going on right now is I hit delete, and it appears to me that Windows is like, well, you don't really want to delete it. You just think you do. So I say yes, and I'll prove to you that I'm not lying. You want to permanently delete this folder? Yes. Okay, you need administrator permission. Oh my God. Oh God. Oh, only Windows is this stupid. When it comes to file management, only Windows is this stupid. This is incredible. So I've never seen this before, to be perfectly clear. It appears that something about the way that Tahoma created that new folder Maybe it's because it begins with a plus symbol. I have no idea. But now Windows is so smart that it's like, well, something about that folder, it's dangerous to let you have access to it. We can't let you delete it. You don't know what you're doing. You don't really want to delete it. Yeah. Like, how stupid can you be? Well, unfortunately, we don't want today's fun to devolve into one of these rant sessions. So I'm going to just go 481 render and see what it does with it. Okay, that's correct. So there's something about the way I had that in there. I don't know what was different other than the word scenes was spelled. That might actually be it. That might be it. Because Linux, I'm totally speculating here, okay? And this is probably as boring as watching paint dry for you guys, but here's the deal. In Linux, file names are case sensitive, so the word scenes, all in caps, is not the same as scenes in lowercase. So when I put plus scenes in caps, because Tahoma is built with Qt, which is a cross-platform programming framework, it could be that its file operations under the hood are determined to understand the same name, one uppercase and one not, as being two different folders, in which case that's why it went ahead and created a new folder. It's a little strange because I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. We'll leave it at that. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So anyway, the long story short is we'll ignore this. So what we actually have here is a folder that you're never ever allowed to actually delete, right? Because we need administrator permission, and I'm the administrator, but yet it's not going to let me do that. So I require permission from Dave Weiss to make changes to this folder. And it's kind of like a lot of people have experienced with Windows with thumbnail files. You can't delete them. They are on your system forever, and they cannot ever be gotten rid of. Pretty crazy. So anyway, that's all right. We're going to grab this, tell it that it's supposed to be 8 frames per second, and again, it's 481, and cool beans. We got our shot in there. So we got to get a background on Golek for sure, and on Fala. There's Mel sneaking around. And now here's the sequence we just did, which we need to get rid of the keyframe interpolation. Okay, so properties, turn off resampling, I should say. That's so it doesn't have that doubling fake motion blur effect. But all in all, I would say the shot came out pretty good. Or the sequence, I should say. And boom. Tianara knows that there's somewhere she can go to escape, maybe. So, okay, that's it. We're almost right spot on to 2 hours, and I'm about sick of working on this, and I need to solve that file problem. So, or folder problem. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's been real, and as you know,